Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Gelvin Valley. We are following our, trying to follow our trail here that we have in courseplay to deliver grain to market while our combine awaits in the field already full again. Still enjoying this fantastic map. I don't care what version you play, you have to admit this has something special that a lot of maps don't. Don't know what it is, but here now is, oh my, I mean, I think this is like our 161st episode. Let me check my notes. Yeah, I think I have that right. 161st. Oh, come on, tractor. And of course I have to sit in here and babysit the tractor, otherwise courseplay will misbehave. Speaking of courseplay, while it's dumping here, let me change this and select our combine, which I think, like I say, is waiting faithfully in the field. Let me head over there real quick. Alright, yep, it's patiently waiting, and you know, we gotta be close to halfway done with our largest field. Let me just check here real quick. Oh, we are over halfway done, and the bummer of it is I haven't put near as much of a dent in our bank account deficit as I would have liked. We are still overcoming, I think, an extra day that we had to wait for harvest. But it is what it is. This is our last field, I think, on this side of the valley. And I think next we'll be heading over to our pasture field, which is way over here. We don't have cattle at the moment, so we have planted barley in there. And, you know, this will make a fair number of bales, so hopefully we'll still eventually get out of the hole. And it's really tough. I'm having a dickens of a time cash flowing on this map, let alone turning a profit. So let's leave our combine. I want to kind of head back to our tractor here as it makes its way down the valley and up the other side into the field. I think the reason it weaves across the road a little bit is it's going a little too fast for the route based on the speed settings that we have in here. Where is it? Maximum speed. Probably if I changed it to here, it could go from recording and it would be a little more moderate speed. But who knows? Who knows? We're doing the best we can as we slide into the lower half of the field and arguably the steepest part. I'm really enjoying watching our hillside combine work the hill. Just a treat to see that on this particular map. And of course he's going to charge right on up the hill because he doesn't know there's crop in there. So hold your nose. It is what it is. Next time I do this field, I'm going to have to try a slightly different route or something with the incoming points into the field. There's just something about them that isn't quite working effectively, at least with courseplay. Of course, according to some of my friends who left comments on these videos, I should have abandoned courseplay a long time ago, and indeed, if I'm going to be parked sitting on this tractor, I could just as well do all the driving myself. But it is what it is. I continue to try. See if it figures out how to offload the grain. Yeah, that's right. Turn. No, there's a fence there, you dummy. Unbelievable. Can it from here? No, it cannot. It is just interesting. I remove the combine assignment so it doesn't perpetually keep trying to find it. Alright, well, it's gonna wait at least. Sometimes, yeah, there are just things about courseplay I have yet to figure out. Sometimes when you start it in the middle, it wants to go find the entrance before it tries to find the combine. Who knows? Who knows? Well, tonight, as I get off work and come here into my little map where I have a little piece, I was thinking back on some memories I had in high school, long time ago at this point. I hesitate to say how many years, but I still remember some things, and I have, it's always interesting too, the memories we all have of school. A lot of folks say there was trauma there. Maybe they faced peer pressure. Maybe they were bullied. Maybe they grew up in a rough home. And, I've heard some just sad stories where kids have been more concerned, with finding something to eat versus let alone get an education. And I feel so fortunate, that I had two good parents and we had everything we needed at home. We weren't wealthy by any stretch of imagination, but that allowed I and my siblings to be able to go to school, get a decent education, have wonderful teachers for the most part, have no complaints there, and all of these things, of course, build a person into the man or woman, that they become. All these experiences. And I got some good memories. I mean, there's some less than pleasant memories. One of them in class that I remember, it was an economics class. Let's see, I believe it was either sophomore or junior year. That'd be the second or third year in high school. I don't think it was my senior year. And I think there was two economics classes, as I recall, or two types. There was one which was kind of the basic version, if you will, and then there was the accelerated version. And I was in the accelerated version, and I don't know why, but I do think they had more things going on for... No, there's a fence there, dummy. You can't go through the fence. Alright. This is where we gotta help a guy out. Oh! Well, that'll get cut out. Smart enough to find the door. Oh, it might make the turn. Ooh, just barely. In real life, we would have taken out that fence post. Anyway, this economics class that I was in, I think it was the accelerated version, or the tougher one of the two. The credit she ended up getting towards graduation was the same, but this one here just had a few more requirements in it, if you will. And one of those things that I remember was the setting up and operating of a company. And this was nothing fancy in terms of a company. I mean, we were just high school kids, teenagers, so it wasn't much we could do. But I recall in the class we were studying the structure of a company, leadership, as to how a company would work, how every company seems to be headed by a CEO or a president type, and the CEO and president is often supported by vice presidents, which have varying areas of responsibility. Maybe you have a vice president of human resources. Maybe you have a department for accounting. Maybe you have another one for marketing, production if you have a company like, or whatever it is. It all depends on the company. So we were studying all these different offices and how, how kind of capitalism in its basic form works. Where you produce a product, you try to sell it for a profit, you have a customer you need to give it to hopefully to keep pleased with your product. And so in learning these concepts, our teacher had us set up our own company and run it as a project in the class. And somehow, I have no idea how or why, the class, we did this by vote. And maybe it's because nobody else wanted the extra work. But they chose me to be the CEO. And once they picked who the leader was going to be, then it was up to the leader to pick the other people that would be participating in the company. So I remember actually, oh my goodness, come on, get out of there. I remember actually getting out of a certain number of classes because I was having to do the business, the work, if you will, of the the so-called executive of this company we had set up. Oh, look at that nice idea there. Huh. Hear all the people enjoying their meals and probably adult beverages. So the first order of business I had, or rather the first order of business we had as a class, was not only to pick the CEO, if you will, or the president, but also to pick what kind of company we were going to do. And, again, we're just high school kids. We don't have a manufacturing facility. So the idea that was thrown out that stuck was we would sell cups. And these cups, just plastic cups, we would purchase from someone. We would put the logo of our school on them. We would put the logo of our company on them. And we'd put some saying on them, if you will. And then we would sell these to sell them at athletic events, like a football game or basketball, baseball, whatever. There's lots of people that come, and so people would volunteer to go out at these and sell the cups in the crowd, or we would tap our own social networks and, go to family, good old family, and try to get them to cough up money, good money for these marginal quality cups. Well, we didn't really know they were marginal quality at the time. We figured that out later. So I don't even recall how we figured out where to get the cups. Nowadays you could probably look something up on the internet and find a source for just about any kind of trinket you'd want to sell, and it'd be no big deal. You could order them by the bajillion, and you could use them as part of a fundraiser or a company experiment, kind of like we did. But in those days, and this is going to show my age, nobody even knew that there was an internet. I think there was, but I was in my first year of college before I'd ever even heard of the internet and was introduced to what it was. So that kind of shows you the time era that we're talking. This would have been very early 90s or latter. No, it probably would have been 1990-ish, around there. So we had, we didn't even know anything about email. It was just not part of our society. But somebody, somewhere, somehow figured out a venue or an avenue to procure plastic cups, and we had to, as a class, figure out how to get M with a label put on there that we wanted and so forth. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. What I remember being forced to do, which I'm sure was good for me, the only thing is I don't know if I've learned my lesson or if it has taught me to be any better of a leader than I otherwise would have been. Not a very good one at that. But I had to interview people, and I remember, there were several applicants for, what combine is jigging back and forth. There we go. There were several applicants for each position, so, I remember I ended up hiring, there was 4 positions, and 3 of them were girls, and 1 was a guy. I'm trying to remember what the 4 were. It probably was accounting, marketing, human resources, and the fourth. Maybe the 4th was production, because somehow we had to figure out how to get the cups, how to put the stencil, or not the stencil, but the print that would appear on it. And we had to work out these details. We wanted to be able to tell our customers, hey, these are microwave safe, you can put them in the air if you want, or they're also dishwasher safe. All these silly things that maybe you would think of them. By dishwasher safe, meaning you could chuck them in there and the markings on them wouldn't just disappear. And then of course we had to figure out how to pay for all of this, and this was real money. So, and that's what was so fun about this. Ordinarily in a company, if you start a company, you're going to be shelling in your money as capital. And I seem to recall we all ponied up something. I don't remember how much. May have been $10, $20, something to put in a pool. We set up a bank account. We did all these things, that a real life company would do. And like I say, one of the ladies that I hired was the accountant, so she kept the records of who had put money in and had to chase down the people that hadn't, to get all of her capital in. And we didn't borrow, so there was no debt involved. But we had to have enough seed money or capital to make a down payment on getting the cups. And I don't remember exactly how all it happened. Somehow we procured the cups, and we had to take them to another company to get marks put on it. Somebody would have been involved. Maybe the marketing guy would have had someone help him put the marks on the cup and get those, manufactured, if you will, to our specs. Would have had to inspect them. Then we would have had to distribute them. And I remember these huge boxes showing up that had all these cups in them, and just handing all those out to the students. And there was actually quite a bit of excitement, because no need to go up there, pal. Quite a bit of excitement to distribute the cups. It was more than just a company where, it was our alma mater, if you will. Now why are you heading over there, dude? Head down here. Head out the door. There you go. It was our school marketing, so I guess you could kind of say it was school patriotism, if there is such a thing. Everybody really pretty well got on board. There was a few people who maybe didn't hardly participate that much or sell cups, but I remember going to family in particular. I didn't go to that many athletic events back in that day. Still don't, just didn't have a huge interest, so I tapped other networks to do my part of the selling as I fearlessly led this company. Well, as people bought cups, money started coming in, so our accountant was tabulating it all up. I don't think we carried any receivables. Receivables are where your customers owe you money on credit. They take the product and then they pay you at a later time. But we didn't carry anything like that, so it was cash on the barrelhead only. So she took it all in. I think we ended up paying the rest of whatever we would have owed to the place, where we procured the cups and those kinds of things. So some of it was managing cash, it was trying to sell. And we had some discussion, what should we set the price at? And eventually, I won't say we reached a point of market saturation, but it was kind of that. We got to a point where everybody had tapped their networks. They'd been to a bunch of games trying to sell these silly cups. And so then we said, well, we still got a whole bunch left. So we learned, just like capitalism is, sometimes if you want to get rid of something, you got to lower your price. And somehow, some way, I know we chowdered through the inventory. We got all of that out, collected all the money for it. And we even then started experiencing or dealing with customer complaints. Someone had a cup and they put it in the dishwasher, and when they pulled it out, some of the markings came off. And I don't remember how we dealt with that, but I think it was helpful to whoever had to deal with that particular complaint, to see that this is kind of how the real world works. When you sell a product to someone and they give you their good money for it, they expect it to work as advertised. And when it doesn't, some of them are going to say something about it, as they did in this case. And I seem to recall as we wound the whole thing up, I don't remember how long of a time period, this went over. It was days. Well, a bit more than days or a month. It probably was more than a month. I'm thinking maybe 2 months. I don't think it ran the whole term. But one of the last things they wanted was a presentation, if you will, to the shareholders. And of course, as the CEO, I was the one that got to do that. And not only did it have to go to the shareholders, I think they invited some other people to it. Oh, that reminds me, I guess back in that day, there was a program called Junior Achievement, and maybe it was partially through those guys that they helped us through this. I don't remember. It was like some management person at a local company would come in and speak to our class like once per week or once a month, somehow, some regular schedule to help teach us these business principles. And so I think when we did the final presentation, I had to speak in front of our class as well as some of these local executives or whatever. I don't remember exactly how that went. I just remember staying up really late the night before and making a report, writing a report. I had to fix and finish the accounting. The accounting person had sent it off, and I was trying to reconcile it, put it all together in the form of financial statements. And little did I realize at the time, if only I had known, little did I realize at the time just how true to life some of this really was, or how it would mirror some of my later experiences in life. I mean, to this day, and the role that I have in the company where I am, yeah, there are occasionally nights I stay up late getting ready for a presentation the following day, to a board of directors, to clients, and only now, it isn't just over silly play money, it really matters, and the people are more than interested to listen to, to the report. They have questions that they have that they really care about the answer to, and I just had no idea at the time what kind of an opportunity it was to be put through something like this in just a humble economics class in high school. I hope they do something similar today. When I talk to my kids, it sure seems like school isn't as, for lack of a better term, as challenging or as engrossing as what it was when I was there, and I don't know why that is. It seems like, they would have more tools than ever to have an engaging learning environment, but what do I know? I'm not a teacher. And I seem to recall that same economics class, I can't remember if I've related this story before, but there was a time in there, I gotta say, the teacher kind of offended me. Well, offended a stupid kid, namely me. He, I don't know where he lived. He and his wife lived, I guess, in a rough area of town, and there was a guy that kept coming around the house. I mean, basically, probably someone who was homeless. Guy on the street, or not homeless. I think he was in what they called a halfway house at the time, where he just wasn't entirely all there. And it's because he had made some very poor decisions in his life and had just messed himself up. You know, whether it's drugs, drinking, cigarettes, and some hard living, let's just say, multiple car wrecks, some criminal activity. You know, you just name it. He had sought for satisfaction in many wrong places, as they would say. Anyway, they had this guy roaming around their house, and I don't know if he had banged on the door a time or two, and the teacher was worried for the safety of his wife, and he may have had a young kid at the time at home, and until they eventually figured out the fellow was really harmless. I mean, he has so messed himself up. I won't say he's a total vegetable, but he's basically harmless. Well, anyway, I know now the reason why our teacher invited him to our class. You know, he brought him in and he had him speak to us about his life. And so the guy's in there saying all these crimes and things he's done, and about the drinking, the car wrecks. The local police knew this guy on a first name basis because he'd been in trouble so many times. He talked about how rock and roll was his savior, and this whole time when he was talking to us, I mean, this poor guy was so desperate for smoking, and this was in the era when the school still had things in like a smoking lounge. You know, there's a few teachers who smoke cigarettes, and so they could always, outside of class, you know, they weren't allowed to do it in front of the kids. They could always go, get a little smoking in. Well, this poor fella, he wasn't allowed to smoke in front of the kids either, but he's so... Where are you going? I tell you what. But he was so desperate to get a cigarette, he had a dry one behind, I think, both ears, wasn't lit. He had a third in his hand. And periodically, he would put this unlit cigarette up to his mouth, and he would take a drag on it. I mean, just pathetic, when you think about it. But maybe he was able to get just a tiny smidge of nicotine, just by doing that. I have no idea. That's how desperate he was to smoke. And I'm pretty sure at the end of the class, he zipped over to the teacher's lounge, to light one up for real. I think by this time he was off drugs. He wasn't drinking anymore, so he might have talked about Alcoholics Anonymous and so forth. I don't remember all of that. Just a poor fellow. And so he's relating all of this, and we get to the end of, the discussion or whatever, and the teacher asked us, does anybody have any questions? So a few people asked him questions. One of them asked what happened to his head. Trust a kid to ask about that. This guy, like I say, he'd been through multiple car wrecks, and he had this huge dent in the side of his head. I mean, it was more than a crease. It was a full-on dent. We didn't put our hands on his head, but it looked like a chunk of his skull had been taken out, and he's all, oh yeah, that was a car wreck I got into, and he babbled out some details. And another kid asked him about drugs and how to stay off of them, or some softball type question that one of these guys would be able to answer, and whatnot. And this is where, to me, it started getting a little offensive. The guy basically told all of us, he says, I'll tell you, you guys stay away from alcohol. That's terrible, bad stuff. But basically, his opinion was if you have good drugs, you should go ahead and take them. And I don't even remember the teacher correcting the guy or anything. But I just remember thinking later, of our teachers, like, well, how could he bring in this ding dong, to talk to us, and for have that to be part of his shtick, where he would say it's okay to take drugs or whatever. It's like, not in a million years. Yeah, there's a bell. But it was in later reflection, as I thought about it, that I realized what our teacher was really trying to do. He knew no matter what this guy told us to do, that we wouldn't do it or wouldn't pursue it because of what this man was telling us. I mean, he was a poor fish. Where he barely had a life at all. He had messed so many things up. No marriage, no kids, no family. They'd abandoned him, to his bad choices, in trouble with the law, living on handouts. I mean, just who would want to live that way? And, to see the scars that he had on his body, the dent in his head, you think, he could tell us to do anything and we'd say, no way, man. You think I want to be like you? And so actually I've looked back on that, and the teacher probably, if he tried doing that today, probably couldn't get away with it. But back in those days he could, and I look back on that, I remember it just clear as day. That was actually a pretty sharp move by that teacher, and this was an economics class. I had no idea we'd have some life lessons in there to boot, and have an indirect way by somebody, an indirect way of telling kids to stay off drugs and stay clean, without preaching at them. Why not bring in some poor fish that have wrecked his life, and you don't have to tell the kids to stay off drugs. They can see the results, and the poor guy right in front of them. So I actually think the guy was pretty sharp for being willing to do that. I mean, that's kind of teaching and thinking outside the box. So good on him. Anyway, the bell has rung, and there's more crop to harvest. But I'll let everybody go for now. Thank you so much for coming along and listening to an old man rant. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next one.